Jack Stanley, mate. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey man, yeah, thanks for having us on, man. I appreciate it.
No problems. Maybe I should call you Mr. Lifesaver. How was tell me a little bit about your recent lifesaving experience, mate.
It's been good, mate. I was life saving when I was about your age, about 16, 17, 18. No, I know you're a bit older than that. And then I went to uni and I dropped it. And so moving up to Avalon Beach, I thought, oh, well, how can I give back? And so I thought, oh, well, why don't I join the club and get my bronze again? So it's been an amazing journey over the last, since February, relearning everything, board rescues and tube rescues and IRB and getting all that on that sort of stuff. It's been a big journey. And then, on the weekend, finally did it. It was big surf too, to do our run, swim, rum. So, and I was competing with, like me 30 years ago, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, but it was great. It was really good. And so now I'm qualified. I can save your life if we go surfing up here when you're coming up for a surf. I've got duties to do. So
do you have to compete with the young guys as well? Like, is there only a certain amount of spots, or is it just to make sure that you can do it?
I think it was more like the A-type personality. You know what I mean? It's like, there was 20 of us going for it on the day, and I'd say 15 of them were young kids, and the rest of us oldies. And we all start off on a line. This is the run, swim, run. And you run 400 meters along the sand. And then it's 200 meters out through the surf around a buoy, come back. So that's 400, and then run for 400 in 9 minutes. And luckily enough, they were being told, look at that rip, go through there. And I thought, I'll just gun it straight through the breakers. And I got through them pretty well and turned around and they'd got swamped by the breakers. So I was like, yeah. And then, turned around, caught a nice wave in, ran a nice 400 at the end of that, and was very happy to clap everyone else on.
Very nice, mate. I'm impressed. I think it's super cool thing to do, to like just go back to your roots and do something that you love and get requalified. And I think it's awesome. So hats off to you. It
was when I tried to transfer, because I did it at Cape Woolamai in Phillip Island, and the IT guy, you'll get this. The IT guy rang me up and goes, I saw your application, but you haven't put your email address. Your email address, it doesn't correspond to the one you had in the past. And I said, what one did I have in the past? Like 30 years ago. And he goes, well, there's not one in there. He goes, so I can't transfer your license because, you didn't put your email address in 30 years ago. And I went, how old are you? He's like 24. And I'm like, well, 30 years ago, there was no such thing as email. So I don't know how you're going to fix the IT system, but you need to fix it so I can transfer clubs.
That's ridiculous. It's so silly that they found your account, they found who you are, and then the thing that wouldn't allow you to transfer was an email. It's ridiculous.
Heck, man, I bet you get all sorts of things, don't you?
Yeah.
I see you upgrading your software all the time, which is awesome. I love those. We give you little hints and tips, and all of a sudden, boop, it pops up. I'm like, yes.
It's all about improving and making things better. But I definitely get some email dramas, that's for sure. Now, mate, speaking on the property side of things, I suppose if you had sort of your own philosophy around building out a portfolio over the long term, what do you think it would be?
Well, look, I think philosophy of building out a portfolio long term, it really depends what stage you're at in life. Everyone's different. Everyone's different. Every person that comes across and we work through them, or we go through the game plans with them and stuff like that, totally different, from expenses to income. But what I sort of categorize probably, 4 different areas. You've got your growth or your learning phase. People are just learning. And usually that's up to their age around 25. They may have not dipped their toe in. They know property is the way to wealth and stuff like that. And then you've got your sort of growth phase that sort of, people have bought their home or they've bought their first investment property, and they know, they're trying to figure out what the best way to keep going. And then you get to that stage of around the 40, 45 range where you've got your portfolio. It's probably managing really well, but you're seeing retirement. So you just go into the management phase of it because you've learned everything. You've done it all. So management is like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I just need to, hit the nail on the head and just smash this out over the next couple of years. And then the last phase is, they call that the sort of charity phase. So you go into retirement and you're getting ready for charity in terms of giving it to your kids, and one of our big things is that multi-generational wealth. So we really want to gear up their portfolio so they can live off it and then hand it over to their kids, and then their kids can live off it and their kids and expand from there. So really, that's probably the first thing, is really figuring out what stage they're at in terms of age and knowledge in the area. And then from there, it just spreads to all different areas. Somebody who's in their, charity stage or their management stage, they might look at a bit more riskier deals now because they've got a really good, solid portfolio. So they can go for, a different asset class that can give them some really good returns, maybe even into developments and things like that, or rooming houses or anything like that. That's sort of, it's not for the non-sophisticated, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's something that you need to know about and build that understanding all the way back to, somebody who's just learning and trying to understand it. Like we've got Rohan that's joining us and he's 19, and he's in the military. He saved a bit of a deposit. His parents are one of our clients. It's really great that, and he's a first home buyer. So that what we're buying him is just something solid that pays for itself, pays for the insurance, pays for management, all that sort of stuff. And it just sets him up for life. He doesn't, if he moves out of the military and moves into something else, great. He's definitely going to get more income. So we've mapped his path out and he's looking at 20-year retirement at 19. That's brilliant.
That's crazy. And I think it's so important to identify the different stages that people are in within even their life. A lot of people talk about life stages, but their portfolio stages too, because as you mentioned, if you have someone coming on board at 19 and they can retire by 20, it's very different for someone in their 40s who's just starting as well, who may not have the same risk profile as someone as a 19-year-old. So I think you've tied it in all together really well. Now, if you had the opportunity to go back to young lifesaver Dax, so just pretend you were the young gun who was ahead of everyone in the test. If you had an opportunity to go back and tell yourself something around building a portfolio when you first started, would it be something on the lines to sort of what you were saying there without the different stages of building a portfolio, or is there something you would tell yourself if you could?
Yeah, good question. I made a lot of mistakes. So if I could go back and tell myself, I think 24 was my first investment property. If I could tell myself, don't buy that one, I would. But on the other side, I learned a lot of stuff. I learned heaps around it. I bought my first investment property was off the plan apartment on the corner of Parramatta Road and Concord Road in Burwood. Top story, 50 square apartment. It had a 75 square balcony. Great for a 24-year-old. I did do well there in terms of the guy that was selling the whole block was a family friend, and he was keeping that block for himself. Yeah. And that apartment for himself. So, but when it got to build level, he was hoping, because if anyone knows about where that is, it's on the top of a hill, and he was hoping he'd get a view of Sydney and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. I mean, it's 15 k's away, so the bridge is like that. But when it got built up to there was a whole lot of trees in the way. So he said, oh, well, he knew I was looking for property, and he showed me a really crappy one on the ground floor ages before that. And I said, no. And then he came back to me, he goes, oh, do you want my apartment? And I'm like, yeah, because he told me about his apartment. And I'm like, show me. So we went up, and I'm like, oh my God, 75 square balcony, 50 square, and 2 cars, which was good, 2-car garage, nice. Which no single one better place has. So it added up to a certain way. And so I bought that. I wanted to go through the whole process. So I even went to the exchange, when you go into, you don't do it now because of PEXA.
Yeah.
But I wanted to learn the whole process. I was just driven that way. And so I went into the room and the banks, are on a group of chairs. The banks are over there and the legal clerks are there and they exchange checks and they go up to the bank. It was amazing. It was really cool. And then when I walked out of there, because they had the keys and everything for me, I took them and I was going back to the apartment. My first thing. I went to jaywalk. And I stopped because I just realized how much debt I had as a 24-year-old. I was like, oh, okay, I better not, get hurt. I'll lose my job. And all these things came in. Anyway, I got to the apartment, got upstairs. I'm like, yeah, walk out on the balcony and I look out. I could see the Harbour Bridge. I could see it. They'd cut down all the trees.
Oh, no way.
So I made 30 grand in a day. And I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I've, read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I've done the best thing. I became the chairman of the body corporate because I wanted to learn that too. This is my biggest asset. I just, and this is sometimes I advise my clients that you want to get to know this, especially if you're young, because you can really accelerate your wealth if you understand the whole process. And so went through that. Cutting a long story short, at 7 years, the building insurance was up. So I'd built up a kitty in the body corporate to pay for the fire, because this was 80 units. Fire engineer, construction engineer, all the other ones to make sure that the building was okay. The report came back. The bricks they'd built between the apartments were too thin from a sound perspective. That report came with a quote to get it fixed, rip out all the kitchens and put this glue soundproofing stuff on it at $1.2 million.
Oh.
I had no control over this. I couldn't do anything. I didn't save that much money in the kitty for the body corporate to do this. And so that was we had to raise a special levy and take it to court and get the insurance, and we got it back, but real disaster. Like it was really bad. But making that money from the view and starting to leapfrog was really a great thing. So yes, I have made lots of mistakes. That's just one of them. But as you refine your process, because I went into townhouses after that and I started flipping them, like buying an old rundown thing, living in it, covered in dust, going to my corporate job and working at nights, and bought another one. And then I was able to afford two, so I could actually live in a place and have a real shower after doing the reno. And so I was doing management consulting at the same time and doing this, and then I started running the numbers better. You know what I mean? Running the feasibilities better on deals and understanding how real estate agents sold and how they some of their tricks of their trade and what they'd play games for me to try and get to sign contracts faster and all this sort of stuff, and started buying options, and it just started snowballing from there. And then developments and now we're here. So yeah, if I could go back and tell them everything I've learned from all the mistakes.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, mate. That was a really in-depth discussion around something like a mistake that you made. So I love that. And it's so hard to find, right? Because at the start you made 30 grand overnight or whatever it might be. But then, 10 years later, there's a big hiccup and it's out of your control. You really don't know those things until you can.
Yeah. And it's one of the things why most of my philosophy is around no apartments, no townhouses, because body corporate and strata are the big unknowns. And we do a lot of risk management and risk profiles on our assets for our clients. And if that's a big unknown, especially for the big high rises. And so we try to steer clear of those.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great sort of philosophy to have. Now, I guess in terms of, as I see many investors or astute investors do is sometimes they do continue to hold on to those properties in their portfolio over the long run, but sometimes they'll make a decision to either sell off some of the bad quality assets and then get into something much better. Is that something that you've done in your journey? Have you still got that one property in your portfolio today? Or, I mean, has there been a point where you've kind of gone, all right, let's transition into some better assets now?
Yeah, good question. I've actually had a few calls the last 2-3 days with clients that have had some bad assets as well. So yeah, I have sold and bought a lot in the past, mainly when I was flipping, pretty much that flipping strategy, but just because you couldn't hold it, and I maximized my manufacturing of the equity, which, you know, renovation and stuff like that, and I'd made it because that was early. That was just after the Olympics. So the properties I bought between the Olympics and Sydney Olympics 2000, 2005, 6, maybe even 7, we got somewhere between 70 to 80% growth. So I was doing renos and making terrible reno mistakes, like ripping out doors when I shouldn't have and getting tradies to put them back in, but I was making heaps of money. So I'm quite grateful I had that opportunity to do that. So yeah, but now it's a very different situation where the assets that we've got are solid assets. The clients that I've come across just recently, they've had one, we had a look at, they had an asset that they bought 5 years ago, and we had a look at it around the 600 mark. It's gone up 10K, wow. And of course it's an apartment. Yeah. And so that's a hard conversation to have with people, because they thought that was the right thing to do. They bought in, they think it's still going to go, but the last 2 years showing the growth that they've had, it's a clear, well, we lay it down. We don't tell them exactly what to do. We give them the options. So, well, if you keep it and we buy this, this, and this, retirement for them was 15 years. But if we sell this, use the equity, use the increase in your debt ceiling, then you can really get down to about 8 years. Which one would you prefer? And we leave it up to them. So it's really making sure that they understand what they've bought, why they bought it, how it's performed in the market, what's going to happen in the market in the future. Is there any manufacturing equity we can do? Can we spruce it up? Can we, like what we're doing, we're staging it and doing like getting the tenants out, staging it, making it really nice to get as much as we can out of it. But we can't, that's pretty much what we can do with those sorts of things. So there are clear lines from our perspective when to sell certain assets, when it's just not adding up like that.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than holding on to a lemon asset over, a 30-year period and getting hardly any growth out of it. And then, looking back and realizing
it's painful. I had one client, he bought 2 in Rockhampton about 10 years ago. One was in Berserker and one was somewhere else. About 4 years ago, I started working with him, and he bought them for 250 and they were worth 210. And he was just holding on to them because he's like, well, I'm going to get my money back. Like, dude, come on, let's take that and put it into something else. And he's much happier where he is right now. So yeah, you do get them.
It's good, mate. It's good, good advice or logical way of thinking about things and giving clients the options rather than sort of telling them what to do. It's just, at least you can lay it out in front of them and they can see the numbers and see what stacks up over the longer term time horizon. Now, mate, I won't fill in too many details for the listeners, but I know you've had a pretty exciting career, all the things that you've done with modeling and I actually caught up with Dax maybe like last month or something like that, and he told me about his whole career, and it sounds absolutely like any guy's dream in terms of what he did. But mate, what was the moment that sparked for you to go, okay, well, I've been a property investor myself. I've been on the corporate ladder. I've done that run, and now I kind of want to start my own business in the property space. Was there like a certain point in time or like a light bulb moment that came for you that go, I want to switch over now? Or do you feel that just kind of naturally happened as you sort of became much more mature and an astute buyer's agent?
Yeah, good question. Well, I guess, I've done defense contracting, simulations, worked for big corporates, done management consulting, a whole range of stuff, which has been a lot of fun. And I got to that point where I'd been flipping houses and moved back to Melbourne about 11 years ago, got into a 4 townhouse development deal, good money in that space, and then did 2 in Parkdale. And as I was doing that, because I was buying a lot of property, some friends and family were asking me to buy them property. So there was at one point I was in Richmond buying a client a property, and he gave me, it was the biggest auction I had. He told me the reserve, like he said, this is what I could bid up to, which was 3.8 roughly. And I was like, okay, can you write that down? I need to put that in my pocket, because if in the heat of the battle, like I can't skip out on $100,000 or something. Like it's not a $350,000 property. It's $3.8 million. Anyway, so it was really exciting. I got there, 3-piece suit, glasses, I actually sat next to the auctioneer. Like I was a part of the crew, but I was leaning against the house. Like this is my house. And I came in at the end and smashed it. So it was great. I got it for 3, 4, 5. So I saved my client, $350,000, which was great. But at the end of that, the guy I was competing with at the end, he came up to me and goes, oh, can you buy me something similar? This was my dream home. I've missed out. Can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, cool. He goes, oh, what agency do you work for? I go, I don't. I'm just doing this on the side. He's like, do you know you need a license for this? And I'm like, no. He goes, well, you better. So that was the light bulb moment, Jordan, that you're talking about. I was like, okay, if I'm doing this a bit more, I better do this. And, luckily auctions are on the weekends. So, it was like my side hustle. So yes, went and did my license. And when I did my license, I remembered when I was buying my apartment, that first apartment, the guy whose manager it was, because I wanted to know everything, he was selling his rent roll. And I went through the numbers and I'm like, oh, this is great rent roll. You can, and it's really good. And you can sell them for 3 times the value, and it's a really good income. So, anyone out there that's looking at, expanding their business, it's a great thing to look at. Anyway, I got to the point of going, yep, I want to put an offer on this. And they went, have you got your license? And I'm like, what? So that was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 30. I don't want to know. I don't want to even think about that. Anyway, so when I was doing the course 5, 6 years ago, you do rent roll management, and you do sales, and you do buyer's agents, and then all these light bulbs went off going, oh my God, I can do property. I could have bought that rent roll. And then all of a sudden I got my license, and then friends and family gave me all their rental properties to manage. And I started building that up. And I got to the point where I was like, well, I might as well just quit my job, because I'm loving doing this property stuff. And I started investing in some other developments, the eco developments that we're in with Nightingale and a couple of others, and starting to build my wealth. And so I got to the point where I got a fairly decent rent roll, and I started analyzing their portfolios. So a lot of my clients have got 4, 5, 6. I've got one who's got 14 properties. Analyzing their properties, because one guy came to me and said, oh, do you buy properties for us, and what should I buy? And I'm like, yeah, sure. All the management consulting skills, I just went and mapped it all out and went, okay, this is how you can get to retirement in the next 10 years. And he's like, brilliant, go find it. And that sparked the buyer's agency. Then I just combed the whole property at the portfolio, the rent roll, and just said, hey, let's do a strategy session. Let's do a strategy, see where you're at. What's your income? Where's this? Where's that? Let's try and map it out. And then we did a couple of renos and increased equity, sold a couple for people, and then it just expanded from there. So it was a long transition, starting in property in the early 2000s, and then, full-time 4 years ago. But yeah, it's been great.
That's crazy, mate. What a story. And I tend to see that happen over time, right? Like it starts as a bit of your personal thing, and everyone else wants a bit of a piece of it. And can you help me out? And then sort of transitions into a bit of a career from there. So I love it, mate. The rent roll side of things is pretty cool too. I don't know a lot of people who have like gotten into a bigger rent roll side of things, and I wish you took up on the rent roll offer. That would have been a good crack and start. But yeah.
Wouldn't it ever? Yeah. That's another thing I would have gone back in the past and said, get your license.
You get started. No, I love it, mate. Now this one might throw you a little bit off guard, but there's 1,001 out there. If you had sort of one favorite property one-liner, what would it be?
My one-liner or my client's one-liner?
Oh, either or. You can give us both if you like.
Good. Okay. I think the one-liners I get from my clients are the objections that I love. Yeah, the ones that are either, partner objections or money objections, or time's a great one when they say, I need more time. And, I had a client come back to me 6 months later, last month. I said, okay, I'm ready. I want to buy that, $600,000 property that you showed me. And I'm like, well, it's closer to 700 now. He's like, what? That sort of, that they're classics, those one-liners.
Yeah.
For me, it's, the biggest thing I see with people is their mindset is the really first thing to smash. If I've got clients that are focused and we get them on the right track and they understand exactly what they're going to get, I seem to find properties like that come out of thin air, exactly what we want. Yeah. So I think, getting your mindset right is probably the biggest key thing.
Yeah, cool. I love that, mate. I agree. And I think that those two are probably the most important, being mindset and time. If you got that timeline down packed, I think it's helps you along the journey. But then if you're laser focused on what you actually want, that's those two in combination is going to get you where you need to go.
No, and the best thing about your software is that they get a roadmap. Yeah. When you're trying to visualize, we do this visualization piece and some meditations and stuff to call in stuff, but we're visioning 10 years, 15 years into the future. What does that look like? What does that feel like? And all that sort of stuff. And your software really complements that in terms of they know what the next steps are. They know they can afford those holidays, and they know they can afford that car and the kids' private schooling, and it's all going to work out.
It's all going to be okay.
It's the relief and drop of stress that people go, oh my God, I can do this. And I've got goosebumps just thinking about it. And I get this from clients and I love it, because you just see that most people, I would say, I'd love to predict 80 to 90% of the people have no plan, have no idea how to do it. Think, yeah, we'll figure it out later on. And I get a lot of clients at my age, 48 to 55, stuff like that think, oh yeah, I've got a couple of properties, it's going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. But when they've got a plan and then their wife or their partner sees it,
Totally. And it's such a good conversation between both of the partners to sort of walk through things. And then, as you said, a lot of people are just like, yeah, I'll just add another property to the portfolio. Yeah, I'll just increase my rents or whatever it might be. And they may not even, necessarily need it straight away. They can wait a little bit longer, get into a better asset, and then they're still going to hit their retirement goals along the journey. So just giving them vision around, okay, well, we can actually retire if we want to at this point in time, definitely helps out. But I appreciate the feedback, mate.
Good, man. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, mate. Well, it's absolutely always a pleasure having a bit of a chat to you, my friend. We should catch up for a coffee again soon. But if you want, we can get you back onto the podcast in the future.
Bring it on, man. Bring it on. We've got a couple of asset classes. I don't know if you saw the federal budget last month. Yeah, maybe last month, a couple of weeks ago. The biggest thing was big pressure on affordable housing. The rents are going through the roof when we get immigration opening up. There's a massive amount of people. We're going to get the size of Sydney population in the next 4 years coming into Australia. Like we're going to have another Sydney spread across Australia, of course. So affordable housing is really precious, and it really resonates with me to a point that I think I've got some really good asset classes that we're going to bring in. That's one. And the other one is we're going to really look at how to get people earlier into the market. Yeah, so there's some really powerful things. You know, we've seen a couple of companies try it and not really working, but I think I've nailed it. So there's a bit more we need to work out from a legal perspective and a couple of other areas, but I'm really hoping that I can help younger kids get into the market sooner, and even older people that I'm seeing come through that are at my age and at the moment they've got no chance of retiring, and that's a scary thing to see. And I just want to help them. I just want to, like, dude, if you just made these different decisions 20 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But I need to find a solution for them as well. So they're the three things I'm working on at the moment. So yeah, I'd love to come back, and once we've got those worked out, tested, and proven, yeah, definitely would love to come back. Thanks for getting me on here too.
No, that's all right. Let's do it, man. Let's be keen to chat about all those sorts of things. I know you're always up to something interesting, especially with like the ecospheres and everything else that you're doing. It's awesome, mate. So definitely keen to have a bit of a chat about all those sorts of things. But yeah, let's do it, mate. It was good to catch up today, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.